Hello, Stefania. I cannot hear you. You're muted.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay, dear. Thanks so much for accepting my invitation and for coming today. It's a pleasure.
Okay, that's okay. Iman, can I ask you something? Is the link, this one, okay for the other people to join? Because they went into the platform. I'm not sure they just have to join as a speaker. Okay, right. Yeah, they are joining now. Okay, fine. Okay. Sorry. Just because they are panicking, they are not here in the office with me. So
yeah, it's okay. It's a Zoom. It's Hoover. It's like an interface on top of Zoom. So the same Zoom experience you get through Hoover.
Okay, fantastic. Iman, thank you so much for for saying that. It's great to be here and contribute. And
my pleasure. Thank you so much.
For the future, I will be happy to get involved and bring something to the conference for the next one you're doing. So keep me in the loop, okay?
It's our pleasure and honor to have you. And inshallah, next year we will make it like a hybrid in a place, in physical place, and as well as yeah, we would love to invite you to like visit our countries and enjoy, have some wonderful time with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to get the guy in. So they have great experience developing DeFi project. So I think that, the conversation and the seminar is going to be very interesting.
Yeah. And we are planning like to promote, making campaigns to promote all these sessions to reach out all the mass adoption we can. And this is how we can say thank you for our expert speakers who came to our conference and contribute to our community. It's like we are still building the community in the Arab region, and we need like to do all the efforts we can do to increase awareness of blockchain. Most of the people here are just say blockchain is a Bitcoin and Bitcoin is blockchain. And that's why we are like doing lots of activities to like say, hey, it's not the same. There is a lot of opportunity over there. You need to check. So we are doing that in Arabic and some in English, trying to like inviting experts. So when we invite experts, it's like make English sessions, and when we are like inviting Arabic speakers and making for local events, for example, we make it in Arabic. So we have the first day on Saturday, we have a blockchain 101 day. It's full day in Arabic. So it was a great experience for them, and they like we had like speakers and attendees from different Arab regions. And this was like our main goal, to invite people, speakers from different Arab regions, not only from Egypt or Saudi Arabia or so. We need like, we are 20 countries. So if we could invite speakers from different countries, that means we are opening community there. We are trying to build a community there, and we are like engaging with them. And this is the main idea behind all the crazy things I'm doing.
Awesome, man. Oscar and Barney, they are here.
Yeah, welcome,
Hello.
Oscar and Barney. Hi, it's a pleasure to have you. Thanks so much for accepting our invitation.
Nice to be here. Yeah, very nice to be here. Looking forward to the chat.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Iman, can I ask you something? Are you going to be recording and
it's recorded? Yeah, it's recorded and it will be published. It will be published on the Hova platform right after the week, and then we will publish it on YouTube, and then we will like make a campaign to promote all the amazing sessions we have. Because for example, here in Egypt, we were like planning to organize this event before the exams, university exams, and for some reason, because of COVID-19, they decided that they will make it earlier this year. So it's like it's our hand. We need like to reach out lots of great audience, and this is how we are thinking about like accelerating the adoption in the Arab region.
Okay, right, great. Okay, let me know when.
Well, you have the full control over your session if you want to like just wait a couple of minutes to your session to start, because it's 11 a.m. Egypt time and I guess it's 1 p.m. Dubai time. I'm sorry, it's like I'm trying to think about all the time zones at the same time, and just a couple of minutes waiting for the attendees to come, and then we can start. You have the full control over your session, and I will like just say thank you and introduce you to the audience, and that's it.
But just if we have a couple of minutes, just making sure, how's our audio? Is our audio okay?
It's perfect. It's perfect. Your audio and video is perfect. Yeah.
It's good. And Iman, we have got an hour, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
And before the hour, 5 minutes before ending our session, I would like send on the chat or talk to you that we only have 5 minutes left just to wrap up. If you like, just to make sure that we are managing our time perfectly, because we have another session right after this.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, maybe we wait a couple of minutes.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, take the water. We have tiny bottles of water. Yeah.
Emana, how is the audience familiar with DeFi?
To be honest, it's like for us here, it's like a bubble or something that's not. Yeah, it's I've met few people who are good experience with DeFi, and most of them like focusing on investing in DeFi as not as a developer, but it's like someone who want to raise money and invest in this part. But the majority is not. That's why we are like focusing on DeFi and some topics that's not the here in the community are not familiar with. And this is how this is part of our methodology to increase awareness, to say what's trending in the global community and trying to like introduce it to the local community. And even the week, the idea behind the week itself, I have seen it on the global community. It's not nobody, or not nobody, few people here know about the culture of blockchain weeks, and we are trying to transfer the good thing we see in the global community to our local communities.
Makes sense.
Okay, great. So then
we have like a chat. Yeah, it works now. They are like confirming that your audio is working perfectly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear everything.
No, but I have met some people who are like trying to like go to the DeFi space as developers, to be honest, as well. But as you know, blockchain developers are not in the global community. It's like we don't have much blockchain developers in the global community, and the same here in the Arab region with the same ratio. If you are in the global community, you're like 1,000 developers, 1,000 blockchain enthusiastic, and you have 10% of them blockchain developers, relatively in the Arab region, we have like 15 or 100, for example. I'm just saying examples, the random numbers. You will have like 5 or 6. It's like the ratio itself. But the majority, yeah, the Egyptian community, for example, more focused on the developing parts. But the gold area, they are more focusing on the investment. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose the developers that are out there, they're all in their specific areas. So one developer might not know about a certain thing, and that developer might not know about this other certain thing.
Yes.
Sure. Makes sense.
Okay.
Shall
we make it start, you think?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
I will mute myself. You have the full control over the session. I just want to thank you, Stefania Barbaglio. Yeah, I'm sorry about like I'm sorry about that. And Barney Chambers, Oscar Chambers. Stefania Barbaglio, entrepreneur in PR and crypto marketing, and our great co-speakers, Barney Chambers and Oscar Chambers, your brother, I guess, co-founder
twins.
and co-lead developer for Umbrella Network. They will have a great discussion about DeFi, trying to simplifying the concept in DeFi space.
Iman, thank you so much for the introduction.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, my name is Stefania, and joining me is Oscar and Barney Chambers. They co-founder of Umbria Network, which is a DeFi, a new DeFi project. And what we are trying to do is to demystify DeFi, which is a word that maybe many of you know, maybe not. And I think we should start here to explain what DeFi is and why it's getting so much attention now. So Oscar and Barney, do you want maybe to kick off just in a simple way so everybody can understand the concept?
Sure. So DeFi simply means, in one sentence, decentralized finance. So that's any financial tool that operates in a decentralized way. So it's something that's spoken about a lot in blockchain because, of course, blockchain stuff is decentralized by nature. So in DeFi, we have things like exchanges, but unlike normal exchanges like Binance or Coinbase or something like that, a decentralized exchange operates in a decentralized way, so usually on top of the blockchain. So for example, Uniswap is a decentralized exchange, and Umbria has a decentralized exchange as well, and they operate on top of the Ethereum network. So that's DeFi, sort of in just a couple of sentences.
And the good thing about DeFi is that it's decentralized, that there's no central authority that governs the protocol, I guess, which means that it's much more secure and it cannot be manipulated by a central authority or something like that. And that's a real innovation because it means that people who might not trust a specific authority can be sure that their funds are safe and that they can use these systems without any risk of someone coming in and manipulating stuff.
So one of the first things that happened in the cryptocurrency space, and the first cryptocurrency that came out, is Bitcoin, and we all know about Bitcoin. So what Bitcoin is basically the limit of Bitcoin is that it's a currency and it's not really much else on top of that. It doesn't have any further functionality. So what Ethereum did is it came out with what's called a Turing complete programming language and a way that you can build applications on top of the blockchain data structure, I guess you could say, roughly speaking. And so now, instead of just having a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, where you're limited to just, sending, receiving, things like that, you can actually build full-scale applications on top of Ethereum. And so we can have all of these interesting DeFi applications that are built on top of the blockchain rather than being having a central point of failure and having a central authority that's running them and upgrading them. It's distributed across the network, and the actual application logic and computation is fulfilled in a decentralized way across the network. And that has a few advantages to it. So one of the advantages is that it can't be shut down by a malicious actor. There needs to be a consensus across the network when anything ever happens. And that's a really good thing for security and all of the assurances of all of the assurances that you don't have with centralized applications, where someone might be able to come in and make a change without your permission, or the kind of change that you might not benefit from, or might be to your detriment or something like that. So there are a whole bunch of security aspects that DeFi is bringing into financial tools that are really providing sort of a better platform for these financial tools.
Yeah, and DeFi is really an overarching term for a whole bunch of different products that are on the blockchain. So it's things like exchanges where you can swap different cryptocurrency tokens. It's also liquidity providing, which is where you get your tokens, you put them into the system and then earn interest by other people using your tokens for different things like lending and swapping. There's also lending platforms where you can borrow cryptocurrency and then you can use that to leverage yourself up or to put that cryptocurrency somewhere else and do a whole bunch of different things with it. So it's not just one thing, but DeFi is like a broad term for a whole bunch of different finance-related tools on the blockchain.
And Barney, I think it would be good just to stop here and maybe explain a little bit more in details opportunities. What are the opportunities for people to earn passive income with DeFi? And before that, how you get to use these applications? What do you have to do technically?
Sure, yeah. So one of the biggest innovations in cryptocurrency this year and last year was the introduction of liquidity providing. And basically what that is you can get your cryptocurrency tokens. Let's say you have some ERC20 tokens like Basic Attention Token or USDT or whatever it is, you can get those tokens and you can put them into a DeFi platform such as Umbria or Uniswap or something like that. And essentially, when you do that, people will be then using your tokens that are in the system, and that will earn you interest when they're using your coins. Because when you use something like Uniswap, for example, if I wanted to trade one coin for another coin on Uniswap, that costs me a 0.3% fee. So if I have, let's say, $100 of USDT and I want to swap it into Umbria, that's going to cost me, I think, about 30 cents, something like that. And then 20 cents of that will go to the users that have provided their tokens as a means of liquidity to exchange between Umbria and USDT. So the reason that's such an innovation is because people have had cryptocurrency now for about 10 years, but there hasn't really been a good way to earn interest on their cryptocurrency. And in typical fiat finance, you've been able to put your money into a bank or something like that and earn interest on it, or you can invest in stocks and get dividends and all that kind of thing. But in crypto, there hasn't really been a way to do that. And this new set of features in decentralized finance has been like the first way that people can earn decent interest on their cryptocurrency.
Traditionally, we have centralized exchanges like Coinbase and Binance, and they are a centralized sort of authority that is running these exchanges. There's a central point of failure. There's one company that owns the exchange, and you're kind of at their mercy as far as how they want their exchange to run, when they want to put it down, when they want to bring it back up again, when they want to do an upgrade. But with DeFi and with platforms like Umbria and Uniswap, the entire application is on-chain. And so when you have an exchange, one of your main challenges to get your exchange moving and for it to be an actual usable exchange where people can kind of trade assets without too much slippage or anything like that, and the spread of prices isn't too much. The main challenge is to have liquidity. So liquidity provision on-chain, on these decentralized exchanges, is a way that the users are incentivized to provide liquidity and facilitate all this trading and then make money from doing so. So now we have a way to have high liquidity exchanges, completely decentralized, not governed by one central authority. And they're providing a way for people to use and exchange in a fully decentralized way and inherit all of those like cryptographic assurances that the blockchain technology is bringing to the space.
And one of the cool things, for example, that the people can do is actually take some of their Bitcoin or their Ethereum they are holding and put them in a platform such as Aave, for example, and then borrow some USDC or USDT stablecoin which are pegged to the dollar, and then with that coin they can actually get fiat and use the fiat. So basically they are getting a loan from using cryptocurrency.
Yeah, and a great thing for the user is that all of these different exchanges and these DeFi platforms are all competing to have the best sort of interest programs for people to earn as much money back as possible. And that's called yield farming, finding the best deal. And so you have all of these different platforms competing to give all users the best deal. So the APYs, the yearly yield that you can get back is incredibly competitive. It's way more competitive than a bank. In some of these platforms, you can put a stable coin like USDT into the platform and you can earn 10 or even 20% per year, which is unprecedented. You can't do that in any bank in the world. And so the ability to earn on these DeFi platforms is way more powerful than any sort of centralized institution that is out there like a bank or something like that.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is that there's no one telling you that you can't open a crypto bank account on Uniswap. It's just a matter of having the cryptocurrency, and if you want to use their systems, then you're completely able to. And I think that that's going to be a huge innovation, not only for people like me and Oscar in Australia or in the UK, but people that might not have such a great access to banking. They can now, all they need is a mobile phone and a mobile app, and they have access to all of this huge suite of applications, and there's absolutely no barrier to entry anymore into all of this stuff.
And I think maybe here it will be good for us to introduce one of the challenges of DeFi, which is scalability and user experience, and is something that is at the core of Umbria mission as well. So one of the problems to access DeFi is kind of like a bit technical, and user experience is actually not great, but also is quite expensive as well. And at Umbria, we have found some solution to make user experience much better. Obviously, the project is developing slowly because we are kind of like a young project, but we are making amazing progress, and we would like to share some of the things that we have achieved and we have integrated in the project. So yeah, Oscar and Barney, they can explain a little bit more into the details what we have done with solving the problem of scalability.
Sure. So there are two main challenges that we see in the DeFi space at the moment. Like you mentioned them both there. So one of them is scalability. Most of the DeFi platforms that have become popular are on top of Ethereum, which, as everybody knows, hasn't scaled very well as this kind of new wave of interest has come into DeFi and has come into blockchain. If you want to interact with the Ethereum blockchain or any application on top of Ethereum, it's incredibly expensive. So for example, I remember in the height of the interest a couple of months ago, or about a month ago, on Uniswap, I tried to do a liquidity provision on Uniswap, and it was going to cost me $250 just to provide liquidity. And that is such a huge barrier to entry. Not everybody can afford to, put in enough liquidity for it to be worth spending a $250 fee. And so the way to solve that problem is to adopt layer 2 and scaling solutions that are built on top of Ethereum, which do all of the computational legwork and take that away from Ethereum, and then just save the bare minimum piece of information on Ethereum to kind of reduce the cost of interacting with the blockchain, but still inherit all of the security and cryptographic assurances that the Ethereum blockchain provides. So these layer 2 solutions and these scalability solutions such as Matic are reducing the fee for interacting with protocols like Umbria and Uniswap on Ethereum, taking the fees from maybe $100 or $200 down to a fraction of a cent. So we've integrated some of that technology into Umbria, and that is how we're sort of solving the problem that Uniswap has and platforms like SushiSwap have on Ethereum, and reducing the cost for entry dramatically by a factor of 1,000 or 10,000 in some instances. So the other problem with DeFi as well is the barrier to entry as far as sort of the user experience is concerned is incredibly high as well. And that can be broken down into two sort of subparts in of itself. One of them is that the technology is super difficult to understand, which makes it user unfriendly. And the other side to that is that when you're dealing with real money, everything becomes scary for the user. So the scaling problem being solved by scalability solutions such as Polygon, that solves the problem of it's real money, it's scary, and it's costing a lot to get in. But the actual user experience is still a huge problem. So what Umbria is focusing on as well is making it very easy to understand the actual user flow through our application, but also providing a lot of documentation to kind of explain exactly how everything works and what you should expect as a user.
Yeah, so one of the things we've really worked on is how to make all of this stuff cheap for everybody to use and also easy for everyone to use. Because Uniswap and all the other Ethereum-based DEXs and DeFi platforms are amazing and a real innovation, but most people can't afford to use them because it's not financially viable. Like if you're wanting to swap, $20 of USDT into $20 of USDC, you can't do that really on Uniswap because all of that money will just get eaten up by fees, and it'll just be way too expensive for you to use Uniswap just because of how Ethereum is so expensive these days. But with something like Umbria, you can do a trade like that for 1/100th of a cent, or sometimes even less, purely because of the underlying architecture is like a newer generation of architecture that's built on top of Ethereum. And we think that all of this DeFi stuff now that's going on is kind of like the first generation of DeFi, and the new stuff that's going to be coming out in the future in the next 12 to 24 months is all going to be using layer 2 stuff, because it's just such a huge reduction in price, but also a reduction in speed. Because Ethereum, they can only do in the order of a few tens of transactions per second or something like that. So if everyone starts using DeFi, which is something that we're seeing a lot of adoption happening right now, it's just going to get more and more expensive and also slower as well, as people are putting themselves in the queue on the Ethereum mempool to go through and actually make these transactions. So with things like Polygon and other side chains and other protocols like that, you can actually make the throughput of this stuff 10,000 transactions per second, 100,000 transactions per second. And that means that the cost is going to stay low, but it also means that all of this stuff is going to be faster. And when things are faster, it also increases the user experience as well. Because when you do a transaction on Ethereum, you press the button, your funds get taken out of your account. There's that few minutes of apprehension where you don't know where your funds are, things haven't finalized yet, and you get a bit concerned, and that's a really bad user experience. But when you're using these layer 2 protocols, things happen almost instantly, and it feels much better for the user.
Yeah, that's a very important point. People panics when they see their money nowhere. They are not in your purse anymore. They are not in your wallet. They are not to the destination place. So yeah, definitely speed is one of the key element for it just get people to engage more with something if something is quick, you know, in anything in our life. But another challenge that I think is worthwhile to mention here is about cross-chain transaction and interoperability, because we are seeing in DeFi so many projects, so many chains, and everything looks like a bit fragmented. So if I'm on Ethereum, I'm on Ethereum. If I'm on Matic, I can go on Binance Smart Chain. So there are so many solutions. They basically try to maximize the user experience from their side, but if as a user I want to switch from one chain to the other, how I'm going to do it in the quickest and cheapest way?
Yeah, so right now it is really difficult to move from one chain to another. And depending on what chain you're on and what chain you want to go on to, it can also be very expensive. And there are a few different bridges out there that allow you to move from one chain to another. Most of them are very expensive and also very slow. So one of the things that we're doing at Umbria is we're building a bridge. It's going to be called the Nani bridge. And essentially what it does is it makes transactions incredibly quick between chains, and it also makes them very cheap as well. And those are the two main problems with bridges at the moment. It's just too expensive to move from one chain to another, and it's too slow. And in some cases, it's just not even possible. So basically, what we think is going to happen is we have all of these amazing DeFi platforms in the world right now. They're all kind of on their own chains and not very interoperable. You can't really use them together very easily. But now that all of these things are out there and people are understanding the power of all this stuff, people are starting to build interoperable projects that bridge the gap between these blockchains. And that's going to be sort of the next stage, we think, in bringing all this stuff together. So right now, if you want to move, let's say, from Ethereum, you have some Ethereum tokens on the Ethereum blockchain, and you want to use something like Umbria on Polygon or QuickSwap on Polygon or anything on Polygon, you have to use the Polygon bridge, which can cost, you know, $20, $50, sometimes more than that, and will take hours to move your cryptocurrency from one chain to the other. But with the Nani bridge, it should only cost about $2 or $3 to move over, and will only take, you know, 5 or 10 minutes instead of a few hours. So we think this order of magnitude of speed increase and cost is going to bring about a whole new set of innovations in the DeFi space. Because when you reduce the cost of something like that and also increase the speed, it gives rise to the opportunity of things like arbitrage opportunities for people who are looking to buy something cheap on one chain and then sell it on another chain for more expensive, and a whole bunch of other stuff that we probably haven't even thought of yet that all of this stuff brings rise to the opportunity of doing.
One of the things people used to talk about back in 2017 when they were comparing coins, and even earlier than that when they were comparing blockchains and comparing coins, they had the kind of mindset which was, which blockchain is going to be the one that people use in the future? And it seems like in the last year or so, everyone's dispensed with that idea, and they've come to realize that actually there's different blockchains that do different things, and there's going to be a few that remain, and we need to be able to kind of move between the different blockchains, and each different network is going to have its place in the world. And you can see that with things like banks, you can see that with things like exchanges. There doesn't have to be just one winner. There's going to be a set of good projects that are useful and that people continue to use. So one of the major challenges is going to be, how do we jump between chains? How do we jump between galaxies in this crypto universe in an easy way that's cheap and fast? And so we're developing our Nani bridge with cheapness and speed in mind, because both of those ideas lend themselves to the sort of maximizing the usability. And right now, there aren't really any bridges that solve both of those problems.
Sorry to interrupt, but I have like a question, if I can ask?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but it's like you're talking about amazing idea. I want to like make sure I understand it well, and I
Sure.
like have some questions. So Umbrella Network is like a blockchain network that focus on DeFi projects, or a DeFi, or can I use it like any like Matic or Polygon or Binance Smart Chain to develop any blockchain application I want to use?
Well, the best way to think about Umbria is that it's an ecosystem of DeFi products and DeFi features, I guess you could say. So we're not tied to any particular chain. We don't believe particularly that we should stick to any one network or any one chain. We want to be kind of a layer on top of everything, which makes everything easier to use and makes everything cheaper to use.
So it's a layer 2 solution?
No, it's not a layer 2 solution, but it's focused on solving the current issues in DeFi that need to be solved. So one of those things is interoperability between chains, and that's what we're doing with the bridge. We're saying, here's our Umbria Nani bridge, and if you want to go from Binance Smart Chain to Ethereum quickly and easily, we're trying to provide the cheapest and easiest and fastest way to do that. And we've also released a exchange and a farm on Polygon layer 2, because when we looked at Uniswap and said, wow, Uniswap's expensive to use, how about we launch something on layer 2 that's easier to use, that people can use more effectively and more in a more user-friendly way. So it's I wouldn't look at Umbria as like a one project thing. This is what Umbria is. It's more of an effort to solve many different problems in DeFi right now and create an ecosystem of friendly, usable tools that can sort of continue into the future.
I guess one way you could look at it is Umbria is a research effort, and we are building a bunch of I guess innovative tools that help optimize the DeFi space. So wherever we see,
okay,
sorry,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So wherever we see a gap, or something that we think that we can build upon and make 10x faster or 10x cheaper, that's where we're putting our efforts. So right now, the main projects we are doing are the Nani bridge, which allow people to transfer their assets from one blockchain to another. And then another one we're doing as well is a decentralized exchange that is 100 times faster and 1,000 times cheaper than Uniswap.
Yeah, I see it, but I cannot use it only for DeFi project. I cannot use it. It's like, for me, it's like a framework that can use for different blockchain network, right?
Well, it's just particular solutions to current problems. So for example, our exchange on layer 2 right now is solving the problem that Uniswap has, which is that it's really expensive to use and it's slow. So our exchange on layer 2 is really easy to use and it's really fast. And another problem that we found is that the interoperability between chains is a problem. It's difficult to swap assets from one chain to another. How do we solve that problem? Let's create a solution to that. So that's what we're in the middle of creating right now. So as other things pop up and other sort of gaps in the space pop up that we think are important to solve, we're going to put a lot of effort into solving those and hopefully provide something really interesting and useful to the DeFi community.
Iman, I think it kind of like comes back to DeFi and decentralized finance. So what Umbria is doing is actually striving for innovation in that space, making a transaction, making ways to earn money, to exchange the best with the best user experience, basically, looking at what is out there and just improving. But it is all in the DeFi space. So it's not like a layer 1 where you can build on top of it. It's not another Ethereum.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, there is also a question here that I would like to bring up because it's quite interesting. So Hamed is saying the way that I see DeFi is kind of like an exchange, a way to exchange, do transaction between people rather than firms. Because when it becomes, corporation getting involved, there is going to become basically more complicated. Also because there is the crypto element. What would you say to that, Oscar and Barney? How would you address maybe the individual versus corporate element?
Well, there's always going to be an element of collectives in any sort of in any centralized thing or any decentralized thing. I think complete decentralization, total pure decentralization, is one of those problems that sort of asymptotes to the pure solution. It never actually quite gets there. I don't think you can have a purely decentralized anything because assets tend to amalgamate. You tend to get little pockets of centralization. There tends to be sort of a hierarchy that sort of naturally arises in anything. But that being said, DeFi is taking away some of these sort of gross inequalities that you see within centralized systems, some of like the tyrannical qualities that can arise in centralized systems. So I wouldn't look at DeFi as like a purist solution to complete decentralization, but I would say that it is more decentralized than the centralized versions of exchanges and things like that.
You always have your entry points and endpoints when it comes to decentralized networks, and those are still in a way centralized because somebody has to host those those endpoints and entry points and that kind of thing. But like Oscar said, yeah, I think that the way that you can look at DeFi is you know, an antithesis to the centralized firm, in the way that it is much more accessible to anybody, and there's no way that someone can be restricted from using it.
Yeah, it takes out all of the tyrannical elements of a centralized system. Centralized systems can be great. You know, we have some really great centralized companies that have come out with great stuff. The reason we have iPhones is because a centralized company has made great innovations, and they've made a lot of money, and that's how they gave us the iPhone. So centralized stuff can be good. But in certain situations, like finance, for example, you can have a government that turns tyrannical and freezes your bank account if they don't like your political views. So that tyrannical aspect has been taken out with DeFi, and that's kind of the main sort of takeaway, I would say, on why DeFi is an improvement to centralized versions of the same thing. But I just don't think that you can ever have complete decentralization.
Because then the user experience, it won't be so great. So you need a trade-off, basically.
Well, at the end of the day, someone has to be able to give you the software. And when you have that, you know, place, which is where you get the software, that kind of makes it centralized.
Yeah.
So that's the difficulty with pure decentralization.
I think here would be worthwhile maybe to talk a bit about community and governance as well, which is kind of an innovative element in the space, particularly in finance.
Sure. So one of the things that's really been an innovation in the crypto space in the last maybe 18 months is the idea of governance in a protocol. And essentially what that means is people that hold the governance token of a protocol, they have the voting power to change the protocol at a fundamental level, at the programming level, which means that if, for example, we are working on Umbria and everyone in the community that has tokens want something to change, like the fees in the system, or they want, you know, a whole new smart contract to be added or anything like that, they have the power to vote that stuff in like a democracy. So a governance token is essentially a token which allows the users of the system to have a voting power to change that system. And that's one of the things that we're doing with Umbria. So the Umbria token itself is an underlying governance token. So anyone that holds that token is going to be able to vote on proposals that will change the Umbria system and the protocol underlying. And that gives our user base full control over all aspects of the system, which means that they can change basically anything that they want with the system, as long as there's enough people that vote on a particular proposal.
Okay, there were a few things, a few concepts that I wanted maybe to expand for people that are not so familiar with. So for instance, the concept of farming, we mentioned that a few times, but how that works and what are the benefits that farming can bring to a user?
Okay, sure. So farming is where you provide liquidity to a decentralized exchange. You get a token back as sort of a receipt for your assets that you provided. So let's say you provide Umbria and USDT. You put both of those assets in and you get Umbria USDT LP tokens, liquidity provision tokens back. So now you're holding a token that proves that you've given assets in, and when you want to get those assets back, you give back the LP token and you get the assets back. But you can do another thing with those LP tokens called farming, which is where you put those LP tokens into a smart contract. And that's like saying, I'm not going to redeem these LP tokens to the original assets. I'm going to hold them in the farm and earn interest on those. And the way that benefits the system is that the system gets to use your assets to provide liquidity to the exchange, and then people can swap between those assets. And the person who provides that liquidity to the exchange is not only earning the fees from that liquidity provision and from those swapping events, but they're going to earn another token on top of that, which might be like the governance token of that platform or something like that. So when we had Uniswap, and that was kind of the first AMM DEX that was sort of in the space, they gave the users back fees whenever they provided liquidity. And then SushiSwap came along and they said, well, we can do one better. We're going to also give the users our governance token when they provide liquidity to our platform. And that is where the idea of farming came about. Not only are you getting the assets for the swapping that's happening within the exchange, but you're also getting a piece of the governance token that kind of gives you a say on how that platform operates as well.
And,
Yes,
and go on, Barney, go on.
So basically, the way that farming works in my mind is that when you provide liquidity to one of these exchanges, they really don't want you to take that liquidity out, because at the end of the day, an exchange is only as good as its liquidity, because the more liquidity an exchange has, the cheaper the transactions will be, because the slippage will be lower between tokens. Because let's say that you only have $10 in your exchange and someone wants to take out $9. Well, that will mean that you have no liquidity left in your system then, and you won't be able to let other people come in and do transactions. So these exchanges need to have a large amount of liquidity for all of their different tokens, so that people can easily transfer between these two tokens without drastically changing the price inside the exchange. So to encourage people to put their liquidity into an exchange, these exchanges are offering their underlying governance token, which they'll give to the users who provide liquidity. So if you want to provide liquidity to, let's say, SushiSwap, you can do that, and you'll not only earn fees for doing so, but you'll also earn the underlying Sushi token. And that's pretty much true for any exchange at the moment. And this is really great for the users, because you can sometimes earn 300% a year on your tokens, depending on which token pairs you're actually adding into the system. And the more spicy and dangerous the token might be, the more volatile it is, the more interest you tend to earn. But you can also earn like a lot of interest on stable coins like DAI and USDT, USDC, if you're putting them in the right farms. Sometimes you can earn 20% or even 30% on stable coins, which is, I think, a massive innovation, because if you have US dollar and you want to put that into a bank, I think at the moment you'd be lucky to even get 1% because the interest rates are so low.
Shall we maybe expand a little bit into this APY and maybe identify the best farm that gives some really good incentive to farm the coin?
Sure. Well, that changes all the time, because different exchanges, different centralized exchanges are offering different levels of reward for farming different assets all the time. And they're changing that to stay competitive. And if one asset is more important to them than another, they'll change how all of that works and how much rewards they're giving back to the users. But something that Umbria is doing, which is very, very similar to farming, but not quite the same as farming on an exchange, is that on our bridge, we're going to be providing a way for people to farm using their assets, for providing liquidity to people moving from one exchange to another, rather than swapping between assets like you would see on a platform like Uniswap. And so the thing with farming stablecoins is, generally speaking, they provide sort of the lowest of the APYs, because they have the least risk. If you have one USDT, it's always going to be worth $1 US. But if you have some other kind of altcoin, some other kind of token, it's going to be sort of volatile. And depending on how volatile that token is, the risk kind of scales with that. It's a function of the risk. And so that's why the stable coins generally don't offer as much interest as a yield for putting them in. There's just not enough risk. But with the Umbria bridge, we believe that one of the most used features of our bridge is going to be moving stable coins between blockchains, between networks. Because most people, when they're moving their assets around, they don't hold them in really volatile assets or really volatile tokens. They want to hold them in a stable coin, so that when they want to make their next trade, they know exactly how much they have. That's not going to change until they make their next decision. And so we believe that people are going to be moving stable coins through our bridge, and that's going to be the sort of most used asset. And so whenever anyone moves a stable coin on our bridge between one network to another, the liquidity providers for that asset are going to earn a fee. And since we think that there's going to be a lot of movement on those stable coins, we think that the stable coins are actually going to provide the most yield, the most APY, compared to other assets, which is the opposite of what would happen on an exchange. So on the Umbria bridge, we're really excited for the prospect of providing the stable coins as liquidity, because we think they're going to provide some seriously competitive APYs compared to anywhere else that you'd be able to farm them.
I think one of the great things is that there aren't actually projects out there. They are solving this problem of cross-chain transactions. So you have got the Matic ecosystem, then you have got the Binance Smart Chain ecosystem, and those ones, they don't communicate. They are very separate. So I think this is where innovation comes in, and this is where Umbria is doing something different. And I think here it will be worthwhile to spend a few words about what we are trying to do to be better and to be different than many other DeFi projects out there. Because Eman, you mentioned before that Arab community and region is more is focused about investing, which is great, but unless you know all the everything about the technology, you are able to make a sound decision. If you don't know the technology so well, then you can incur in some really bad project, then you don't realize they are not transparent, there are anonymous member team, and they are just basically looking to issue a token and then make lots of money and then just run away, because this is what happened in 2017 and 2018 with ICOs. So this is something that when Oscar and Barney started Umbria and talked to us about it, this is one of the priority, right? We want to be at the forefront of innovation, but try to be fully transparent and different. Maybe Oscar and Barney, you can explain here a little bit more what are the risks out there, because many investors, they should realize that this is a space full of scam, full of people trying to con you, and you don't want to put your money there because you're going to get burned very, very badly.
Yeah, I think that for me anyway, when I invest, there's a few things that I make sure that a project has before I would put any of my money there. And one of them is that it has a visible team, because I think that it's important that the team it's able for the team to be held accountable for any mistakes they might make or any devious behavior that they have. And having a team there, it just adds a layer of trust onto any project. So that's one thing. Another thing I would say is making sure that they have any sort of innovation in their protocol, and that they're not just copy and pasting someone else's project and then leaving it at that. Because it's one thing to just duplicate a project and then push that out, and it's another thing entirely to add innovations to that project and build something totally from scratch. So those are the two main things. And also the final thing that I would also look for is making sure that the team is actually talking to the community, seeing what the community want, and showing that they have a real interest in driving that project in the way that the community see it happening. And I think that that's one thing that's really good about governance, and allowing the user base to have governance token of the protocol, so they can help be involved in how the project moves on, in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years time. And so those three things are the main ones I look for when I invest in any project.
Well, one of the things we've been seeing in the last sort of year or two is a lot of the infrastructure for regulation is coming out, and a lot of different places in the world are becoming more strict on the regulation. And there's a real push for legitimate projects to become regulated and show that they're striving to keep everything legal and keep everything within the strict regulation. And so the thing with Umbria is that it's administered and organized by a publicly listed company that knows all about regulation and has a public face and has a reputation and accountability attached to it. And so that really lends itself to trust, as far as users coming in, seeing what Umbria is all about, and seeing that we do have experience in that kind of thing, and at least have all the mentors and advisors telling the Umbria project what they need to do to sort of fall within the scope of the correct regulation, staying legal, making sure to maintain trust, making sure to interface very closely with the community, be transparent, and all that kind of thing. And that's something that's it's catching up in the space. A lot of projects are adopting that kind of paradigm, but there certainly is a lot of room for improvement in the space in general. So that's something that we're going to see, I think, really become more of a priority for a lot of projects in the next 5 or so years.
The company is called, just to clarify, is called Online Blockchain, and is listed on the London Stock Exchange. So each of you can look up, and they focus basically on developing blockchain solution. And we have worked on different projects, but Umbria is one of them, and the latest one. So you can check it out as well. Oscar, you mentioned about regulation, and one of the things that many people are asking is, regulation and decentralization and DeFi are two things they can work together, or is regulation going to be always the bad guy that is trying to limit decentralization and cryptocurrency adoption?
Well, definitely some aspects of regulation are bad, but that's for sure. But I think a lot of aspects of regulation are good. Not everybody who's coming into the space can read the smart contract code and say, okay, I know exactly how this works immediately. Even developers can't look at it that way. And so you need a layer on top of that, which is another kind of assurance that you're not going to get the rug pulled out from underneath you. And the regulation and sort of a strict set of parameters that developers and projects have to operate under is definitely going to help you know, the project not do something unexpected once the sort of regulatory frameworks are in place. You can't just come in, make a fully regulated body and steal people's money, for example. And so that's the good side of regulation. The bad side of regulation is that if a government wants to get rid of cryptocurrency effectively, they can really hinder the on-ramp and the off-ramps into fiat. And that could be something that is a serious challenge for the cryptocurrency space in general, should governments, you know, turn tyrannical and say, we don't want to do crypto, we don't want crypto in our country, we think crypto should be illegal. And so regulation is kind of a double-edged sword. It can be used for good or it can be used for evil. And so I think in a lot of ways, the regulatory side of things has improved the space a lot. It's improved the level of trust between the user and the projects themselves. And so it's mostly a force for good at this point of the game, I would say.
And I think that as regulation becomes more prominent, and if it becomes more tyrannical and goes you know, too far the other way, we see the innovation in cryptocurrency kind of combat that. So in, I think it was 2014, 2015, when regulation started to come into cryptocurrency, into Bitcoin especially, people started really putting a focus into privacy coins. And there was a massive boom and innovation in cryptocurrency space in terms of privacy coins. We saw you know, the introduction of Monero and Zcash and that kind of thing. And that was sort of battling the regulators in a lot of ways, because it was much more difficult to monitor privacy coins, and you can't see where the transactions are going, how much is in a transaction, and all that kind of thing. So I think that if the regulation does get you know, too much, and people start disagreeing with all of the regulation that's happening, we'll see more innovation in the way of combating that regulation from the crypto developers.
I think that's a good point, but also we are seeing some country, for instance, like Gibraltar, Malta, Switzerland as well. They are more crypto friendly, let's say. Then you have other countries that are more resistant, but there are places they are welcoming and they are understanding the value of blockchain. That's a fact. But
yeah, it's definitely a big risk as well for countries to either ban or accept cryptocurrency. And I think that really companies that are banning it or are heavily regulating it are doing themselves a disservice at the moment, because they're missing out on all the great innovations that are happening. And for those that, you know, outright ban it or impose those strict regulations, they're going to be left behind when all of these innovations become more mainstream and people really start to adopt cryptocurrency.
okay, another point that I think it might be helpful for everybody listening is about talking a bit about token sales. So there are many projects, they come out the same standard way. I have got an idea, I've got a concept, I'm going to go out with my token before it's on the market. I'm just going to sell it, do a private sale and get some investor in. This is something that most of the projects do. Some, like EOS in the past, they raise a crazy amount of money and then I'm not sure what they use it for, but there are actually projects they haven't done any token sale. And I mean, at Umbria, we haven't raised any money from private investor, but there are some other projects like DigiBuy, for example, or so many others. Maybe asking Oscar and Barney and get them to expand, why not doing a token sale and what are the risks when you are actually going out with a token sale? So investors, they are approached by a token sale project, they know, right, they can actually ask themselves some question and think about it, rather than just thinking that is the normal things to do, because it's not that every project is actually doing a token sale. It's a very important element to stress, I think.
Yeah, I think for some applications, doing a token sale can be really useful. Like if you have a large amount of underlying infrastructure that you need to get your project to work. But we decided not to do a token sale because we like the idea of having an organic project that the price is set by the community, and it's all a fair distribution. So if you want to buy some of the tokens, it's not a matter of getting in early at a discount in a pre-sale or something like that. You can go, to Uniswap or to our exchange and buy the token at the same price that everyone can buy it. We think that without having a token sale, it lends itself to a more fair launch. And because Umbria doesn't really require hundreds of millions of dollars to build these systems, we didn't think that we necessarily needed a token sale, and that it would be more fair for our community, and just it made more sense for us not to have a token sale.
we found that a lot of the projects in the space that fail and raise a lot of money, they're like a firework. You know, they go up, they make a big bang, and then they fizzle out. And when you're starting a new startup or a new company, one of the major challenges when you've raised investment is how do you spend the money effectively? And that takes a lot of experience. It takes a lot of planning. And we with our project, we don't really need a lot of funding. We just have a community of incredibly intelligent and engaged developers and people who are interested in the space and people who want to make improvements within the space. And we're just focusing our energy on creating solutions from the problem up rather than the solution down. We're not creating sort of an application and saying, okay, where does this apply in the space? I hope we can find our audience for this thing now that we've raised money. We're looking at the actual problems and we're saying, well, there's a problem over here. How about we try to solve it and we talk to our community and we see what they say about the problem and whether it affects them. And once we've decided on that, then we'll go ahead and try to solve the problem. And that's the kind of approach that doesn't require a huge amount of funding. And when you're building that community buying the token and using the token and things like that, that provides a little bit of funding, and that provides just enough engagement so that you can solve the problems without having to raise a huge amount of funding and then kind of worrying about what you're going to do with all of that kind of thing. And with these projects, with good, strong cryptocurrency projects, they're really based on the strength of their community a lot of the time, not how much money they've raised. So having a good community behind your idea, who really believe in your idea, that's way more valuable than having a lot of investment, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree. Finally, maybe just a few words to wrap it up. You mentioned about cross-chain transaction and the work that Umbria is doing with the bridge to promote interoperability. What are the other areas of innovation in DeFi that perhaps Umbria is going to be looking at in its roadmap?
Yeah, so one really interesting thing that I think will be a massive innovation is once we have this bridge working 10 times faster and 10 times cheaper than any other bridge, that will allow us to do a whole bunch of really interesting yield farming and arbitrage. So at the moment, we have some really awesome platforms like Harvest Finance, and Yearn Finance is another example. And what they do is they go around the DeFi space on Ethereum and they look at the best yield farming opportunities at any given moment. And then they put all of their community's funds into that farm while it has a really amazing APY. And then if the APY of that goes down, and they then move everybody's funds to another farm and have a really amazing APY over there. But the problem with that system is that it only works on Ethereum. They can't take advantage of the awesome farms on Polygon or on Binance Smart Chain or any of the other systems. But once we have our bridge working 100 times faster or 100 times cheaper than any of the other bridges, we can then build all of these systems that can get the best opportunities of farms on any blockchain. We can move everybody's funds from Ethereum onto Binance Smart Chain, onto Polygon, and then really optimize how much people can get in APY for their cryptocurrency. And we think that the first innovation in DeFi was people implementing these farms. The second innovation was people like Harvest Finance finding the best deals on the blockchain and getting the best APY. And the next innovation we think will be the same thing again, but over a whole bunch of different chains. And I think that that will increase the APY that people will be able to get, maybe double or even triple.
One of the awesome advantages of having decentralized systems like Umbria or like Uniswap or SushiSwap or anything like that is that you can write applications on top of those applications. You can write APIs on top of those where people can program them and automate a whole bunch of different financial transactions. So basically, we're going to be coming out with an SDK, a software development kit, where you can interface with our Nani bridge and you can write programs that leverage our bridge at certain moments that would be profitable or useful or anything like that. So anyone can build an application and say, oh, there's a really good opportunity over there on Ethereum, but I'm on Binance Smart Chain. Okay, write a little bit of code and get it to automate that movement from Binance Smart Chain to Ethereum when the correct time is. And obviously, programs are really good at very complex tasks. Like software is good at complex tasks that humans can't do. So you can automate all kinds of opportunities that wouldn't be available if the Umbria Nani bridge didn't exist. So the Nani bridge can be kind of the center of all the action as far as arbitrage is concerned, moving between all these different kinds of chains, finding the best deal, and using the bridge to cross over between all those different opportunities.
So basically what you're saying is that any project can actually take the bridge as a separate things from Umbria and just integrating or using it when they want within their project. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's going to be a few versions of the bridge. So the first version is okay, we have a bridge, we want to move Umbria from Ethereum to Matic, Matic to Ethereum at any time we like. Okay, now that's working. What's version 2 going to be? Well, version 2 is going to be bringing on all these different chains, all these different assets, and then we have movement between all the different chains, all the different assets. Version 3 will then be a software development kit on top of that, where you can write programs that automate all of that super easily. And then you can click go on your program, and then it's jumping about between all these different chains and all these different assets and finding the best arbitrage opportunities. So we're going to deploy this over 3 sort of stages. Stage 1 is going to be coming out in the next few weeks. And then after that, it will be a smooth transition over the year to version 2, version 3, and then hopefully Umbria 90 Bridge will be the center of all that action between the different chains and provide all these different opportunities for arbitrage and applications on top of the 90 Bridge, which will be able to interface with all the different kinds of areas of cryptocurrency.
And the beautiful thing about that is the more people that use it and the more adoption there is, the higher the APY for our users. So as more companies come in and start using the bridge, our community benefits with all the fees that are generated from using the bridge.
Okay, because there will be a farm as well, as you mentioned before, connected with the bridge. So
Exactly.
that's how the bridge can allow transfer, migrating of funds is because it's got a farm that is providing the liquidity.
Oh, well, when you said migration, that's just reminded me of something as well. Not only can you just move the assets that are in your wallet, you'll be able to move the assets from any of the DEXs that are on any of the chains with one button. It'll pull the assets out. Let's say you have assets in SushiSwap on Polygon, but you want to move them to PancakeSwap on Binance Smart Chain. You'll be able to use the bridge, pay a tiny fee to the bridge for its trouble, and move those assets from one place to another, and be earning a better APY in some other place. Or maybe you just want to be on Binance Smart Chain because they have an asset that you want to buy or something like that. The bridge is going to be the hub right in the middle for all of that kind of migration.
Right. So rather than just selling the assets, which I have to do now, is I just click a button and that will go on the Binance Smart Chain DEX, and then I can do a pancake swap for another asset, for instance.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So yeah, we are coming to the end of the session. What I like to maybe spend a few words is that anybody that is interested to understand DeFi, to try DeFi, please come to the Umbria Discord channel, reach out to us on social media, because Oscar and Barney, one of the things when we kind of started Umbria was we want to engage with anybody that is interested in DeFi and help them to get into the space. So there is an element of education as well that we want to achieve, and we want to get everybody the tools to start this journey that is going to be really disruptive for every person. So, you know, a few words that you want to say about how people can get in touch with you, you know, where they can ask you question. I think that would be very important. Sure.
So the first place to visit would definitely be umbria.network. And on Umbria Network, there are links to all the different things you can do with Umbria. There's our Discord channel. There's a team page where you can follow us all on Twitter as well. But umbria.network is the first place to visit, and you can find us on the Discord, where that's linked on the website as well. And you can talk to us about anything DeFi related or protocol related. And we're there a lot of the time, so we'll always be available to answer any questions or anything like that.
Yep, and if you're a developer, we're also always looking for people to chat with and develop with, and anyone's welcome to do a pull request on any of our GitHubs and get involved as a developer as well.
Yeah, amazing. So we are really looking to grow the community, because we are trying to solve one of the major problem out there, and more people understanding, more people contribute from different kind of background. That will be amazing. So check out Umbria Network, and any question about DeFi, just ask, because you know nobody is a master here. We are all starting somewhere, and that happened to me 5 years ago. I didn't know anything about crypto, and then then slowly you understand, you see the opportunity. I think it's very important to don't feel, oh, maybe I don't know, I shouldn't ask. You should ask, because everybody of us is learning in public. I
want to agree with you, because I always say that the crypto or blockchain community is a friendly community. Yeah. They welcome answering and helping and supporting. So yeah, absolutely. Whenever you need any help, whenever you have a question, go and ask expert like Oscar and Barney, and of course Stefania. Any wrap up you want to make it before ending the session?
I think that's it. Thank you to everyone who came to listen, and make sure you ask us any questions that you might have in our Discord, and we'll be happy to answer any of them as soon as we can.
Yeah, we had a great time, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stefania, Oscar, and Barney for attending us, accepting the invitation, and giving us a very informative session about DeFi. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm looking forward to having you next year, inshallah.